15 jurors have returned. Do we waive calling of the roll?
Yes,
Waive the
yes,
roll?
Your Honor.
Thank you,
Good morning, Detective.
Good morning.
I believe we left off with Commonwealth's Exhibit 33. I want to go back a little bit. You advised that you took photographs of the defendant's truck pursuant to the search warrant, correct?
That is correct.
Did you use a search warrant to search Dan Lockheed's vehicle?
I did not.
Was that a consent to search?
It was indeed.
What's a consent to search versus a search warrant?
A consent to search is when someone agrees to let us search their property, be it a house, a car, their person.
Now, I want to go back to when Michelle was moved from the warehouse mezzanine area, she was taken by whom?
She was taken by the coroner, who employs a livery service. And a livery service are gentlemen that the coroner employs to move bodies from scenes such as this to the medical examiner's office.
So that morning, you obviously had contact with Michelle to remove the ligatures, correct?
Yeah, as minimal as possible, but yes.
And you wore gloves?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did any other detectives have contact with her?
There were other detectives up there, definitely Detective Stahl, Detective McVeigh. There were definitely other detectives up there.
Okay. And of course, did the coroner have contact with her?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
And the movers employed by the coroner had contact with her because they had to move her?
Yes, sir.
So we know of other people who had contact with Michelle?
Yes, sir.
I want to, what we've been talking about up to this point generally is focused on the first few days after the homicide. I want to, and I'm doing this for a reason. It appears the next involvement you had in the case was on June 4th of 2012. Is that correct?
I'm not sure what incident you're referring to.
Did you have occasion to take evidence from one of the employees named Paul Hansman?
Oh, yes, sir.
And what did you do there?
Buccal swab.
Okay, and
Fingerprints.
what's that mean?
A buccal swab is a DNA sample. In the past, a DNA sample comprised of pricking a finger and collecting a sample of blood. But in this day and age, again, it's so sensitive that it's simply a Q-tip rubbed on the inside between the cheek and gum, and that picks up plenty of skin cells in order to obtain a DNA profile. And it's much less intrusive to folks, so that's the way that we do it now. Yes,
Did
sir?
you have occasion to process evidence on that day?
I did. I actually did that from 6/8 of 12 through 6/28. We had multiple things going on at that time in this investigation and in others. But during that time frame, I processed numerous items of evidence that we had collected earlier.
I want to direct your attention to Commonwealth Exhibit 134. Brian, as much as possible, I want you to scoot over to this side of the stand. Thank you. Detective, what are we looking at here?
We are looking at the ligatures that we removed from Michelle's arms.
Okay. And Commonwealth Exhibit 135.
This is as we begin to separate those layers. If you've ever tried to, what we want to do is the least intrusive type of processing possible. So there's two things that we're looking for on these pieces of tape. We're looking for fingerprints and we're looking for DNA. My expertise is in latent prints, so the best way to process these without interfering with the DNA process is to do superglue fuming. So I separated all these pieces of tape by freezing, and that sort of negates, if you ever tried to use duct tape in cold weather, it doesn't stick as good. And that's the effect that we created using dry ice to separate the tape and superglue fume it in order to attempt to find latent prints on it.
Commonwealth Exhibit 136.
Again, another piece of tape. As we separated them, we took photographs of them prior to processing.
Okay, Commonwealth Exhibit 137. What are we looking at here?
This is the interior of our superglue fuming chamber. These are documentations of the steps that we take to avoid cross-contamination at this juncture between items of evidence. We know that we're going to process numerous items in the tank, so what we want to do is sanitize the interior of the tank with isopropyl alcohol, just to be on the safe side. We changed the paper that is in the bottom of the tank with each sample, as well as sanitizing anything that the evidence may touch. In this particular circumstance, it wasn't as big of a deal because that was clean non-stick aluminum foil that the pieces of tape were on, and that was already as sanitized as it could get. There weren't anything, we didn't have to worry too much about cross-contamination with that.
Okay, Commonwealth Exhibit 138, what are we looking at?
We are looking at the Applebee's bag, and we are going to start processing things that are in that Applebee's bag.
Do you recall where this bag was located when it was collected?
I do. It was outside that door that goes from the mezzanine, the unfinished area, to the finished area, and it was just outside that door, if you remember, in the unfinished area.
And why is this bag important to you?
Because it appears to contain a lot of Michelle's belongings, things that she were most likely moved from that large blood stain that we saw in front of the women's restroom out to the mezzanine.
And who do we believe moved this?
The perpetrator, just due to the fact that there are several items that contain suspected blood in the bag.
Approach quickly, Judge.
Okay. See it all right? Everyone? And if there's any time you can't see something you need to, just let me know.
Yeah, Judge, I can see the window over top of the window.
So yours is glared from that angle, is what you're saying.
Turn that light off, John. Yes, this, the light off, Elmo.
Leave.
Oh. How do you do that? This button here?
You're just.
Does that help? That helps,
Is
yeah.
that better?
Okay, Detective. We're referring back to Commonwealth Exhibit 26. I was asking about the location of the Applebee's bag.
That's correct.
Okay, go ahead and point out to us, where's the Applebee's bag?
This is one of the early overall photographs that we looked at yesterday, and you can see right here in this corner, that's the day planner, and that white that you see right there is indeed the Applebee's bag.
Thank you. Let's take a look at Commonwealth Exhibit number 139. What are we looking at here?
We are looking, I removed the handles from the Applebee's bag. The most sensitive process we could do for latent prints on the Applebee's bag was, again, super glue fuming and dye staining. But when we dye stain, that's a liquid process that we add to the super glue to make it fluoresce, which really helps us to see detail. But in this particular circumstance, I didn't want to take any chances of ruining any touch DNA that could have potentially been on the handles. So we went ahead and removed the handles and processed the rest of the bag for latent prints.
And again, why are you paying this much attention to the handles of this Applebee's bag?
Because the bag was relatively heavy, so if someone was carrying that bag, it would cut into their hands a little bit. It's kind of got some, it doesn't have rough edges, but if you've ever carried in your groceries in those plastic bags, it cuts into your hands a little bit. It's kind of the same thing here. And what that's going to do is hopefully transfer epithelial cells from the hand to those handles. So we wanted to make sure to not dilute those if we could avoid it.
Okay, let's look at Commonwealth Exhibit 139. I'm sorry, 140. What are we looking at here?
Those were some time cards that were located in the bag. They had some reddish-brown stains on them.
Can you read the names on those time cards, please?
It looks like Steve Napick or Nopick, Doug Tungate, Dylan Carter. I can't read. There's one that does not have a name on it, and then Zachary Wright or Rice maybe.
The one that does not have a name on it, does it show that it's been punched in at all?
It does not appear that it has been.
Does the one without name appear to be a blank time card?
This side of it, I don't see anything on.
Thank you. And where were these time cards located?
They were in the Applebee's bag.
Okay, Commonwealth's Exhibit 141.
Because we were going to use a liquid process in a dion on this to locate latent prints on these cards, because we believed, due to the fact that we saw the reddish-brown stains on there, that potentially the perpetrator had moved these, touched these in some manner. So we went ahead and we took samples from the cards of that reddish-brown stain, just again so we wouldn't cause dilution and have the purest sample possible for later testing.
Commonwealth's Exhibit 142.
When we process, one of the things we do is we validate our chemistry. These are fingerprints that I put down in this pattern on a piece of paper prior to using it on the actual items of evidence to ensure that my chemistry is working, I've mixed it properly, and it's working the way that it should.
Commonwealth's Exhibit 143.
And in the meantime, I start the fuming of the Applebee's bag. Again, we've sanitized the interior of the tank. There is a rack in there to keep the bag from touching the bottom of the tank, just so that the fumes can get into the whole bag. And that rack was sanitized as well prior to the bag being placed on it.
Okay, thank you. Commonwealth's Exhibit 144. What are we looking at?
These are some of the results that we got from some of the time cards. The process within Inidadion is that you apply the Inidadion and let it dry and then heat it up, and it will cause this reaction with zinc chloride. That's the fluorescing portion, and we'll be able to see fluorescing fingerprints on the cards, hopefully. When I did this process, I saw numerous fingerprints on these cards.
And, let me ask you this. So we see some fingerprints on this time card. Were these submitted for comparisons?
All the fingerprints that we located on the time cards were submitted to the Kentucky State Police APHIS section, which is the Automated Fingerprint Identification System.
Okay, thank you. Let's look at the Commonwealth's Exhibit 145.
Once we begin to locate prints, we don't just take those overall views, we take closer up views, and in order for us to submit those to the APHIS system, they have to contain a scale so that they can scale those properly to make sure they're the right size to go into the system. So we'll take close-up photography of each one of those with a scale.
What are we looking at in Commonwealth's Exhibit 146?
Just another one of those latents that we developed on
Scale
a time
here.
card with a scale. Yes, sir.
What are we looking at Commonwealth's 147?
This is the day planner, which I showed you earlier, the location of the Applebee's bag. It was there with the Applebee's bag. And this is what we call a RUVIS crime scope imager. It works with shortwave UV light and basically a complex night vision scope, for lack of a better term, in order to help visualize things such as bloodstains, latent prints, all that kind of stuff without doing any chemistry at all. So we wanted to make sure that prior to applying anything and starting to do more processes that are going to change the evidence, we did the least intrusive ones first. Unfortunately, this did not yield any additional information.
Judge, may I confer with the defense for a second?
Yeah.
Before we go any further with this, I want to go back to Commonwealth's Exhibit, 146, 145. You said you were able to find numerous prints, and they were submitted for comparison. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you remember who you sent them to?
I believe the report came back from Paul Dorman,
Is he a known fingerprint analyst?
analyst.
Okay. What were his findings?
His findings were ultimately that we did find some prints on the time cards.
Okay. And do you know whose prints we found?
We found Douglas Tungate's fingerprints on his cards, as well as There were some later prints of Mr. Michael Carter that were located as well.
Yeah, on which time card?
Michael Carter's.
So the sum total of the fingerprint evidence in the sum total of the fingerprint evidence in this case is Michael Carter's fingerprints are on Michael Carter's time card, and Doug Tungate's fingerprints are on Doug Tungate's time card.
That is correct.
Okay. Now we can continue this with the Commonwealth Exhibit 148. We're talking about analyzing the day planner.
So our concern was that we had some reddish-brown stains on the time card, so we wanted to look for processes that can develop blood on dark surfaces. This is a titanium dioxide and methanol process in which we tried to accentuate any faint blood stains that could potentially result in some latent prints, and we were unsuccessful in that as well.
Let's look at Commonwealth Exhibit 149. What are we looking at here?
This is one of the portions of the plastic bag that was located over Michelle's head.
And what's going on with it?
We're just photographing us taking it out of the bag, and we take photographs of it through each step of our processing.
And what would ultimately happen with this bag?
Ultimately, it'll go into a super glue fuming chamber, and we will look at it for latent prints. Now, in particularly on this piece, we didn't want to take a chance at diluting DNA, but what we do is we do super glue. The super glue kind of forms a polymer and kind of locks in those prints, makes them a little more durable. And fortunate for us, if the super glue sticks to any of the DNA, it does relatively the same thing. It sticks and locks it in. So what we have to make sure of is just to let the DNA analysts know that we super glue fumed it, and they'll use a different buffer solution. So as long as we don't use wet processes on this, super glue fuming is fine if we want to continue with the DNA.
Okay, let's look at Commonwealth Exhibit 150.
The bag in the fuming chamber.
Okay, Commonwealth Exhibit 151.
Again, is that portion of the bag in the fuming chamber.
Okay, Commonwealth Exhibit 152. What are we looking at here?
Earlier, we showed you the picture of the tow motor and the little box of tools, and we had located a utility knife in it. One of the reasons it was of interest to us and we collected it, it did have a reddish-brown stain on it. So we wanted to make sure to put that through the super glue fuming process as well. Because even if the DNA analysts look at it first, we can still go back and do fingerprints later. It's a lot less chance that they're going to get damaged. So we went ahead and fumed it in order to protect the prints in this case.
Okay, Commonwealth Exhibit 153.
That is the utility knife in the fuming chamber.
Okay, let's look at Commonwealth Exhibit 154. What are we looking at here?
These were genes that were marked as having come from Mr. Dooley's residence.
And Commonwealth Exhibit 155.
And we, again, wanted to observe using white light, looking for any type of blood or any reddish-brown stains that could potentially be blood. We did not see any. There was, however, a rip in the genes that we documented.
Commonwealth Exhibit 156. What's going on here?
We weren't sure what the weapon was that caused Michelle's injuries early on. One of the heavy things that you may or may not have seen in that hallway was a fire extinguisher. It was placed back up on the wall, but just in the event that that was the item, we wanted to make sure to process everything that was in close proximity to her that could have potentially been the weapon. So we went ahead in an abundance of caution and processed the fire extinguisher for latent prints.
And is that what we have in Commonwealth Exhibit 157?
It is. That is the fire extinguisher being processed for latent prints in the fuming chamber.
Okay, give me one second. Detective, you have a number of items of physical evidence here today, correct?
A substantial amount, yes, sir.
What I'd like to do is go over what you have, give a description of the evidence in this case, okay?
Yes, sir.
I want to start with what's been listed as Boone County's Sheriff's Office item number 88.
You'll have to bear with me today, Mr. Heck. We've had a switch over in our evidence tracking system to a more advanced system, so I may have to reference some numbers as we go in order to make sure that I can access the items you're asking for. Yes, sir.
What is Boone County Sheriff's Office item number 88?
Those are the handles that we saw earlier that were removed from the takeout bag.
And for the court's record, we are labeling this as Commonwealth's Exhibit 158. What's going on? tell us what you do.
One of the things that we make an attempt to do is we want to limit some of the courtroom contamination. If I was to grab this out of here and start handling it with my bare hands, number one, I would be exposing myself potentially to blood, but additionally, I would also be exposing the evidence. We talked about how the heavy bags can cut into your hands. I don't want to be touching these either, just in case in the future somebody wants to conduct some additional testing. So we're going to be very careful about how we open things. We're going to try not to talk over things. We're going to try to just be careful with these items.
Those are the Applebee's handles?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. You can return those to the packaging.
Which item would you like to see next, sir?
Boone County Sheriff's Office item number 14.
I apologize. There are a lot of items here.
Okay, and for the court's record, it's listed as Commonwealth's Exhibit 159. What are we looking at here?
We are looking at, this is the package we talked about earlier, taking swabs from Michelle's arms prior to her being put into the body bag, and that's what this is.
I'm not going to ask you, what is a swab?
A swab is, it's basically like a Q-tip. It's just sort of an industrial one. Instead of having a sort of cardboard or plastic handle, They're a little bit longer, and it's a wooden handle and just a sterile cotton tip.
Thank you. And this is one we've already done. We did, this is 158, this is 159.
That's
So
correct.
I'll move them over the table.
Yes, sir.
Next, I'd like you to pull Boone County Sheriff's Office. Item number 15. I believe that's listed as Commonwealth's Exhibit number 160. What are we looking at here?
That is the swab from Michelle's other arm.
Okay, so these are the swabs that were taken from
Right,
arms,
both of them.
150 and 160.
That's correct, sir.
I'd like you to pull out Boone County Sheriff's Office item number 20. For the court's record, we're marking this as Commonwealth Exhibit 161. I will have you open this one, please.
These are going to be the ligatures that we located around Michelle's wrists. These, whenever you have something that's plastic such as that with blood on it, we have a high potential for what we call flaking blood. The blood flakes off. So I'm going to open this up over here over some clean paper that we can dispose of properly, just to make sure, again, in an effort to not get those flakes of blood on other items. Within this package are numerous individual packages.
Okay, and what are they?
Each one of these packages are individual pieces of those tape. As we separated them, we broke them down.
How many different pieces are there?
Ultimately, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 packages.
Can you just open one of them, please?
Sure. This is what you'll find in each one of the packages. It's some of that nonstick aluminum foil. Turns out it works great for salmon, and it also works great for evidence. This is what the trace section at the laboratory suggests for anything that's an adhesive type of a surface, just because things can so readily be removed from it. And it's a little difficult to see here.
Judge, what I'm going to ask is that the witness come down from the witness stand and just walk along so that the jury can see what you have.
Let's counsel see. Objection.
No objection.
Defense counsel see if there's showing.
Tape. Is it the tape, Brian?
methodology by which we package all up to date.
Something we use with TV programs. Are you using TV programs? So maybe that one makes Thank you.
And again, there were 7 such liquor stores found. Next, I'd like you to pull Boone County Sheriff's Office item number 61.
Yes, sir.
We're going to mark that Commonwealth Exhibit 162.
Yes, sir.
What do we have there?
Originally, this was the Michelle's blouse, her bra, and her jeans. Subsequent to this going to KSP, there's a label that you see on the front of the bag that says items removed. They broke it down further into individual items. So when you see that on there, that lets you know that they kind of broke out some things themselves that they thought were relevant.
You said KSP, that's Kentucky State Police, correct?
Yes, sir. The laboratory, yes, sir. And so what remains in this package is the bra, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Which items like these see next?
Boone County Sheriff's Office, item number 65. And Detective, I don't know if they're next to each other, but the next two are going to be items 66 and 67.
All right. I'm sorry, sir, what was the number you were looking for?
65. And again, if they're close, 66 and 67.
Here's item number, original item number 65, sir.
Okay, and it's been marked as Commonwealth's Exhibit 163.
It has.
What are we looking at here?
We are looking at, again, another buccal standard.
Again, that's one of those swabs you talked about.
One of those swabs that we put in the mouth, yes, sir.
And who's it up?
That's Dan Moshby.
Okay, the victim's husband.
That's correct.
Thank you. And if you could get item number 66. And what do we have there?
We have, again, a buccal swab.
Of who?
This is from Mr. Joe Secret.
And where was Mr. Seeger employed?
At Thermo Fisher Scientific.
And this is marked as Commonwealth's Exhibit 164. Could you pull item 67, please?
Yes, sir. It too is a buccal swab.
Who's that of?
Mr. David Dooley.
And let's mark that as Commonwealth's Exhibit 165. If you please pull Boone County Sheriff's Office item number 12.
It too is a buccal swab, sir.
We're going to mark that as Commonwealth's Exhibit 166. And is it a swab of food?
Oh, I'm sorry. It shows as a cotton swab with possible blood.
Of food.
Objection.
I can refer to the evidence log.
Approach.
Approach.
Okay, where was that swab taken? Can you tell?
It says in the evidence log here from the mezzanine area.
So it's a swab of blood.
Suspected blood. Yes, sir.
Okay. And that would be sent off to the lab, would it not?
That's correct.
Okay. So this, when we questioned you yesterday, there were a number of spots of blood, were there not?
There were, sir.
Okay, and that's one of those swabs.
This is one of those swabs.
Okay, we'll mark that as Commonwealth's Exhibit 166. Please pull out Boone County Sheriff's Office item number 31. We're going to identify it as Commonwealth's Exhibit 167, and I will ask that you open that.
Number 31. Yes, sir.
Marked as Commonwealth's Exhibit
167.
167. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Open that.
There are a couple of items in there.
What are we looking at?
We are looking at a knife as well as a swab that the Kentucky State Police took of the knife.
Okay, thank you. Go back. Do you know where those items were collected from?
Yes, the knife was collected from the janitor's closet in the downstairs on that first floor area.
Thank you. Let me ask you, Detective, did you do any testing on that knife?
I did not.
That went off.
Kentucky State Police did, yes, sir.
Next, I'd like you to pull Boone County Sheriff's Office, item number 32. We'll mark it as Commonwealth's Exhibit 168. What are we looking at there?
A screwdriver.
And where was that collected from?
That was located in the janitor's closet on the first floor, same as the knife.
And Judge, I've requested that the witness be allowed to show this closer to the jury and to the defense.
Okay, just show the defense first.
Thanks, Kyle.
Sorry, no, it's okay.
Thank you.
The yellow sticker on there is from the Kentucky State Police.
Detective, Next, sorry.
Next item, sir.
Boone County Sheriff's Office, item number 33.
Yes, sir.
And what are we looking at?
We are looking at, we showed those two swabs yesterday that we located with the blue star going into Tom Seaman's office. They had those little arrows pointing at them. And this is one of the swabs from that area.
Okay, no need to open that. And we're going to mark that as Commonwealth's Exhibit 169. And could you please, next, Boone County Sheriff's Office, item number 34.
This is the a swab of that second area that fluoresced with the blue star.
Okay.
Out in Tom Seaman's office, yes, the other little pointer that you saw yesterday.
We'll mark that as Commonwealth's Exhibit 170. Next, I'd like you to pull Boone County Sheriff's Office item number 44, what we'll mark as Commonwealth's Exhibit 171.
Yes, sir.
What are we looking at here?
A utility knife.
Do you know from where it was collected?
It was from a cart in the warehouse.
And Detective, did you do any testing on that knife?
Again, we super glue fumed it and then send it forward to the Kentucky State Police for DNA analysis.
Thank you. We'll mark that as Commonwealth's Exhibit 171.
Be careful, that's got on the bottom.
I'm going to ask you to pull Boone County Sheriff's Office item 54.
Chris, can we approach while he's doing that?
Yeah. We're going to take a short break. He's going to line up some of these things so we're get those numbers ready. During the trial of any case, you should really not to inform or express an opinion of the case is submitted to you, not to converse with or allow yourselves to be addressed by any other person on any subject of the trial. Whether no officer, party, witness, or attorney should talk to you without permission of the court, and you are instructed to report on all public attempts to contact you as described previously to the trial court yourself, and no any independent research or watch any news clippings, briefs, news items, and no reading of the newspapers.
All rise.